All and welcome to this presentation. So just to add to what Ben's saying there, so we're going to do a bit of an overview of where we are with Leeds, and more importantly, really how transport and work orders really help and facilitate what we're all trying to do on the railway. Without these, we can't do what we do from a major enhancement scheme. So they're really important. So we'll take you through. Andrew will take you through the couple that we have on the go at the moment, where we are with them, and what the outlook is, hopefully, with these orders coming to fruition, and how it's going to change the railway. So it's to give people an overview, if you've never been involved in them, what they're all about. And I think it's quite a useful thing to be well aware of, because more and more we're having to rely on these as we move forward. So as Ben said, for those that don't know me, David Broadbent, worked for Network Rail and been on the Alliance for about 9 years. There's a few faces I sort of recognise. So we'll go into this, and then we'll pick up questions at the end. Okay. Oops. Just do that. Perfect. So we're the technically challenged ones. So as I say, David Broadbent and Andrew Wooddisse. So a bit of an introduction that we've done, give you a bit of an overview on the Transpennine route, and then we'll go into the order. And we've got two quite significant orders on the go at the moment, one for Church Fenton and one from Micklefield through to Leeds, of what we're trying to achieve in terms of these orders, and what it means to the railway as well, and to the infrastructure. So just to give you a bit of an overview. So for those that aren't aware, Transpennine, major scheme for the north of England. It's obviously been promoted numerous times. It's been various guises as well over the past 10 or 15 years. It was just an electrification scheme, and it's now become more and more of a major enhancement and an upgrade scheme, running from York all the way through to Manchester, and covering, all those key stations and areas. And it's split into various sections all the way through. Predominantly, our focus is all about the York to Leeds, and that's what the East of the Leeds Alliance is all about. East of Leeds Alliance, for those that aren't aware, it's a combination of Network Rail, Murphy's, Siemens, Volkers, and Sister and the designers. And we've also got the likes of AECOM as our partners as well, with Network Rail, with the OP as we call ourselves, to support us on the consent works that we need to undertake. So York to Leeds, going to be worth all in all about 1.2 billion overall. We're probably looking at somewhere around £10 million to £11 million being spent between York and Manchester as we upgrade all this work. Not to be confused with NPR, different scheme. So that's a completely different proposition as well, the NPR scheme. So just breaking it down for us. So for York, we go through to Church Fenton, and we've broken that down into 4 or 5 phases. So we've got the E1 scheme, which is the one which we're currently on with, and it's coming to a close. Basically complete remodel from sort of Colton Junction, full electrification all the way through to just shy of Church Fenton, and major track renewals, re-signalling, the full works really of an enhancement and project. And the next phase that we're starting to commence, and we've split that into 3 phases, is between Church Fenton and Leeds Station itself, including a major remodel of the Neville Hill area. For those that remember, I think 1991 was probably Leeds first when they did a major remodel of Leeds. A couple of people nodding. Well, that's come round again. We're going to try and remodel it and undertake an awful lot of enhancement work at Neville Hill itself. So we've got 3 phases. There's E2, which is Leeds through to just beyond Neville Hill. E3, which is the main section there, running all the way through to East Garforth, and then E4 running through to Church Fenton itself. And while we undertake these works over the next 4 to 5 years, we've undertaken diversionary works on the Castleford line, so we can on weekends divert trains all through Castleford area, so we can close the Micklefield to Leeds line most weekends, and we've got a diversionary route in place. Also, as part of our works, we are undertaking and remodelling and rebuilding a major depot for Northern at Shipley, so the electric stock twos can go there. We're also remodelling some sidings as well at stop at Skipton. And in the future, there's still talk of possibly Hambleton and to Selby in the future as well, still to come off. But whether that comes off, we're not sure. But we've done a little bit of work on that, and we'll wait and see what happens. But timeline, you probably, there's another 4, 5, 6 years worth of work just from an enhancement scheme for the east of Leeds. And on top of that, then you're into the likes of the whole signalling remodelling as well. That needs to happen at some stage as well. Why? So why are we doing it? We want to give more seats. We want to make it much easier for people to travel on the network. It's a difficult network to travel on at the moment. People are experiencing that, unfortunately. It is something, we do say it's on track to better. So I don't always remember that, it's on track to better when it's difficult. More seats, trying to make it more reliable, more trains, faster journey times to get people there quicker, better station improvements. All the stations, they haven't had improvements over the past 15, 20, 30 years. So we're trying to improve the stations, make them more accessible for people, make it greener, full electrification, which is obviously a key thing and a key driver for the railway and for the economy as a whole, really, that we become greener. But trying to get more people onto the railway so they feel safer, it's more comfortable, there's better Wi-Fi. It's what people want, and we want to be able to put people onto the railway so they can make those journeys and get them off the roads as well. I reckon, if we can do this, we could save, each day something like 1,000 lorry loads on the equivalent to 1,000 lorry loads on the road network from a carbon perspective. So it's quite major what we want to do really across the route, and the savings between, it will reduce journey times down 5, 6, 7 minutes potentially as well overall, which I think is key to the people commuting and travelling. So there's a lot going on, and there's a lot really to benefit in terms of what we're trying to do really. Just an idea really of some of the benefits from an East of Leeds perspective, what we're doing and passenger experience. Just picking a few out, we're trying to improve. So there's better remote monitoring, there's better resilience. Obviously there'll be full electrification, making it traffic management ready for ETCS as it comes through in the future. Bit of a bugbear for people, bi-die at Neville Hill. There's a couple of instances over the past few years where we've had trains crash into each other, etc., and we've ended up blocking lines. A key thing is getting traffic moving, and especially unblocking the Neville Hill area, making it easier to get in and out of Neville Hill. It's quite a difficult place to get out of from a train perspective, and trying to improve obviously possession working times as well. It's very difficult around the Neville Hill area, and what we're trying to do is improve that with some of the things that we're looking to do and unlock the electrical systems around Neville Hill and Leeds Station, where at the moment they're locked into each other. If we can unlock that with some independent works, we can increase the possession times that we get in that area, which will be key for us and for maintenance and for ops. And obviously increasing line speed is a key factor in getting track line speed up. So slides probably a lot of interested in. Just on the line speed, so just to give you an idea of what we're doing, York, Leeds to York, overall in what we're doing in an enhancement perspective, it should give us an improvement of at least 1.5 minutes. E1 from Colton to Church Fenton, etc., we're looking to increase and get the line speed up to 125 mile an hour on the down Leeds there. Relatively maintaining speeds through Church Fenton and through Garforth, etc. And then obviously Church Fenton, we're raising the line speed through there. And then as we get into the Crossgates area, we're raising the line speeds there. So there's various incremental areas where we are increasing the line speeds through track alignment and full track renewals and signalling improvements, etc. So there's an awful lot is going in to try and get these line speeds up. So we've got the trains that can cope with it, being fully electrified. And obviously we've got a better track condition, track alignment, and improved drainage as well, which obviously helps from a track perspective. So hopefully future-proofing the railway to make it more maintainable, but we'll get those line speeds up as well. And one of the key things is shutting level crossings as well to make all this happen, which we'll come on to in a minute. And then from a York to Leeds perspective, there should be relatively about 2.5 to 3 minutes of improvement in journey time for us. Again, going back the way we're going to see. Neville Hill is a good example. At the moment, it's about 40 mile an hour. We're improving the curve at Neville Hill. We're going to move it away. For all those that have travelled there, the DB stock that has been there probably for about 30 years and hasn't moved, managed to get rid of that, and we've got land take there, so we're moving that track about 40 metres. So we're improving the curve, and we should get that line speed up to about 70 mile an hour to come through Neville Hill. So the train actually is now being able to accelerate coming out of Leeds as it goes towards York, where it was quite a slow journey before it could really accelerate. Probably was cross gates and beyond before it could open up. Now we're coming out of Marsh Lane, and we can start to open up and give the train the opportunity to start to get to line speeds. Cross gates, etc., raising it, and we sort of full renewals, but maintaining 90 through. There wasn't much opportunity to go to 100 really through Church Fenton to cross gates, increasing it through Church Fenton, and obviously it can open up and still achieve 125 on the Church Fenton to York stretch there on the up line. So quite a lot going into there, and we should see journey times improve really considerably over the next 4 or 5 years as we develop these schemes. And then the safety benefits of what we're trying to do, again, just picking up on a few of these. We're improving, especially from a track maintenance perspective. So CPOS is obviously a big thing, especially going over 100 mile an hour. So a lot better, a lot more improved walkways, so people can access the railway. We're closing the level crossings between Church Fenton and Leeds. All those will be closed, and we'll come on to those, and that's why it's really important. In order to do that, we need the orders to do that. Still got a little issue with Cottonthorpe, but that will hopefully eventually be overcome. But at the moment, from all the rest of the level crossings will be closed as we deliver this scheme. They will be replaced by new footbridges of some description, be it ramped or stepped, various things. They will be going in. We're improving the maintainability in what we're trying to do here. One of the key things is that we're trying to, in terms of what we're doing with the enhancements that we're undertaking, is trying to make sure for the next 5 or 6 years, maintenance or renewals don't have to go back in. So there is this 2030 rule, it's been slightly extended, I think, whereas we don't need to go back in and undertake any works. And that is key. So we're disrupting the railway once, and hopefully then we've got a bit more of a maintenance-free railway for a number of years to help the passengers really on the network. Obviously, improved RVI, better access points, lightweight signals, so they can be dropped easier, more improved junction lighting, and trying to more switches in place so we can work in the principles of faster isolations as well, with it being overhead line. How are we going to do it? So I was cautious Mr. Ness isn't here with putting a few too many words on, but he hasn't turned up, so I'll give him a shout out as he's not here. Got a big box plan. We've looked at this plan numerous times. We've replanned and replanned and replanned on this particular project. So the key thing at the moment, what we're tasked with from the DFT, is completing Church Fenton through to Crossgates by January, February 2026. That's our key. And then 28 to deliver Neville Hill, remodelling and through to Leeds. So awful lot to be done over the next 24 months really in getting the Church Fenton blockade done and all the key works that are in between from Micklefield through to Crossgates. Access wise, so we've been to and fro in 9 and 12 we're going to get. So, we get 9 weeks of opportunity, weeks 4, 8 and 12. Go back to maintenance for them to undertake their works that need to do. You'll come across that there's going to be a number of major closures that we will be involved in. We'll close the railway in order for us to do the works. Church Fenton, there's at least a 4-week closure at Christmas 25. We've got a number of 4-day closures and 9-day closures going to be undertaken. And we've got some fairly big bridges where we're going to have to close for a considerable amount of time. 432, those that know it's the big bridge, overbridge, which is just by Neville Hill, the bearers on. That's going to get done this Christmas. And then we've got the 2 big bridges. One's off Marsh Lane Viaduct. We're going to be undertaking them in Christmas 27. So they're both on, I think, Leeds Orbital as well. So we'll be shutting most of Leeds down when we do those 2 structures So quite phenomenal structures that we'll be undertaking in the future. And just to give you a bit of an overview of what's coming up on our scheme, really. So this year, in a couple of weeks' time, we've got Barston Ash. The bridge there will be demolished and we'll be rebuilding and putting a new bridge in. We've got it's cast already. It's on site. I don't know if anybody travels that way, Tadcaster Way. You can see our compound there with most of the infrastructure for that bridge is already there in place. That's ready to go. We've got the TSC, and this comes back to the isolation principles that we're trying to achieve between Leeds Station and Neville Hill depot, where we can put the TSC in. That'll get commissioned, and that will allow us then to start to independently feed Neville Hill. And it means that we can take longer isolations. It probably gives us another hour and a half, 2 hours, where we don't have to wait for the last train off before we can turn everything off. It's going to be, it'll give the industry major benefit that we're not having to wait for Neville Hill to be fully clear of everything into its depot off the line. E1, hopefully we're going to be fully energising. We've got some final works to be undertaken at Colton, and then we can get that up and running and get that energised. We'll commence track works. We've got some major Cat 11 and Cat 15 works to be undertaken this coming year. We've got Osmondthorpe Bridge, which is the one with the 432. That's this Christmas. And we've got to finish off the tangential wiring at Colton as well. So there's quite a lot of key milestones that we need to achieve this year as an alliance, as a group. Use some of the volumes. So just to give you a bit of an overview of the volumes, those are sorts of volumes that we'll need to do. We've got 3 major culverts. For example, we've got 2,500 kilometres of either re-railing, single rail or 2-track rail, full renewals, 1,500 kilometres, 1,500 metres, sorry, of Cat renewals there, Cat 11. A number of major renewals, weekends, 27 of them, 28,000 metres of troughing this year. So there's quite a lot of works just this year, really. And this is ramping up as we complete E1 into E2, 3, 4. So there's a phenomenal amount of work to be undertaken. And just to give you a bit of an overview, just to complete the works post 25, there's still an awful lot to do. 5 blockades, 50 odd track kilometres of electrification, and a number of under bridges and over bridges. 36 S&Cs mainly, as we do Neville Hill in 28. All that S&C gets renewed. So yeah, it's a lot to do. That brings me on to Andrew, really. So we've got all that work, got all that future work, got work ongoing at the moment. But the only way we can do that is by having the land available. And any of you will know, if you want to do any major works, we need the land. And the only way now we can get the land, really, is going down the road of orders, really. Some of it you can do negotiation for short term, but anything major and major schemes, we've got to use the orders, and this is where the orders are really critical to us, and they come into play. So I'll hand you over to Andrew.
Thanks, David. Evening all. I'm hoping I've pitched the level of detail about right with this. So I'm kind of assuming that most people don't know too much about Transport Works Act orders. There is some time for questions at the end. I think so. If I lose people or whatever, then we can pick up questions at the end. So yeah, why a Transport and Works Act order? What I wanted to do was just start off to giving you an idea of the range of powers that are available in a Transport and Works Act order. So if this works. So quite a big list here. We can get a deemed planning permission, so that's the primary development consent, and we can get listed building consent associated with that if we need it. We have powers to construct and maintain the schedule of works, powers to execute street works, so that's basically interfere with the public highway. Powers to stop up streets, that includes public rights of way, which is quite a difficult thing to do normally. Powers to alter the layout of streets and also temporary stopping up of streets. Very importantly, acquisition of land and rights in land. That's a key one for us. And also we can include protective provisions for various statutory bodies, which is an important part of this. So it's a powerful legal framework for delivering transport infrastructure. And I suppose just to explain a bit further, really, a Transport and Works Act order is a statutory instrument. So that means it is effectively secondary legislation. So it's a powerful tool that we can use. And with that brings a range of benefits. So those benefits include full powers to construct and maintain the and to operate the railway. It means we don't need any additional powers for the elements that we include in the order. So it gives us all the powers we need to do what is included in the order. And following on from that, it gives a degree of certainty, or it gives us certainty that we can use these powers and go ahead and deliver. Importantly, it's a single decision. So the order is delivered via a decision by the Secretary of State. So it's a single decision at a national level rather than multiple decisions at local level. And so a very important distinction between, business as usual. And that can lead to programme savings, cost savings, efficiency, savings around management of risk, that kind of thing. So that's just a bit of an overview on the Transport and Works Act order process. What I'm going to do next, for TRU east of Leeds, we require 2 orders, and I'm just going to run through the scope of those orders in turn. The first one is the Church Fenton level crossing reduction order, and the second one is the Leeds to Micklefield enhancement order. So the Network Rail Church Fenton level crossing reduction order does what it says on the tin. It's changed, good. So to start off with, on programme, we made the application for the order in July 2022. We had a public inquiry in August 2023. That's quite a long gap, and there was some problems, not of our making, in terms of how long it took to get to determine the need for an inquiry and to get to an inquiry. But happily, once we had the inquiry, there was a very quick period between the inquiry and the Secretary of State decision, which was in November 2023. That's very quick between inquiry and decision, and the order is now made and in force. So it's a legal instrument that's in force as of April this year. Where is it? Church Fenton. So pretty much in the middle of the route between Leeds and York. What I'm trying to show on this slide is what was the problem that we were trying to solve with the order. So to explain, probably better if I point actually. So you've got the railway lines, you've got the CFM line here, and you have got the MOC line here. And in this location here, you've got a number of properties called Rose Lane Cottages, and you can see they're landlocked between the 2 railway lines, and they are accessed via a level crossing, which is Rose Lane here. And there's also 2 more private level crossings, one here and one here, which provide access to the agricultural land to the south of the railway line. So as part of TRU, we need to close those level crossings. So obviously we need to provide an alternative access over the railway. So that's basically the problem we're trying to solve with the Transport and Works Act order. That's everything on there. That just shows you aerial shots. So these are the Rose Lane Cottages that are referred to, the 2 railway lines, the level crossing, and there's a footbridge crossing as well here. This is Rose Lane.
It's probably worth just emphasising on this particular one. It's one of the most dangerous ones in the country, and NR has to provide 24/7 attendance at this level crossing, so it's costing NR a fortune. So this is why it's important that this one, it does get closed and as quickly as possible and as safely as possible. Yeah.
So Just in terms of the design, we spent a lot of time looking at design alternatives and various different kind of strategic alternatives. We quite quickly concluded that we're going to need to build a bridge. So these images show alternative locations for an overbridge over the railway line. So this is Common Lane. This is the main public highway. So it's providing access from Common Lane to the agricultural land and to the Rose Lane cottages. So we quite quickly concluded that was the right thing to do. The next question was, where do we put it? We looked at various options and at the constraints to doing that. And one of the key constraints in this particular location was flood risk. This picture just shows the purple blocky area is flood zone 3. So that's the highest flood zone risk. So when we got to look into the detail of it, that flood risk zone was very much driving the location of the bridge. And you can see that the bridge on the embankment to get up over the railway line, we put that in the location where it was had least impact on flood zone 3. So you can see that this area here, where we've got the embankment that would take flood capacity out of the floodplain, we were trying to avoid flood zone 3. So that had a big bearing on where we actually put this in detail. We also tried to keep it as far away from residential properties and take that into account as well. And this slide just shows really what we ended up with. So this is the scheme design that we submitted as part of the Transport Works Act order. And the main reason for showing this is to kind of illustrate. So this is going back to what I was saying about the powers that the order gives us. This shows the kind of extent of land that we needed control over to deliver these works. The Network Rail land boundary on this plan is shown in green. So it's very, very tight to the railway corridor, typical sort of setup. So we needed permanent land to build the road and the embankment and a car park, some permanent land here for a third line, and then temporary land for construction and also for flood mitigation measures as well. So it's quite an extent of land that we needed to deliver this, and to bring this together without the order would have required negotiation, ransom situations, all that kind of stuff. So that gives you, just it's a good illustration of what the order gives us in this particular situation. And there's just a few visualizations here, so just to give you a bit of a better understanding. So forgive the tower blocks. There are no tower blocks in the west of Church Benton. That's the artists got a bit carried away there. But you can see the design. So you've got the road, the access from Common Lane, the bridge, car park. I just put this on because it kind of illustrates the point about flood risk. So you'll notice that north of the railway, the road is on an embankment. South of the railway, it's on piers and an embankment. And that's because if you remember that flood zone 3 drawing, the flood zone 3 is here. So with flood modelling, what happens here is that the flood water accumulates over here, comes from the sort of northeast direction. And in the worst case scenario, it sort of bums up against the railway line, eventually floods over the railway line and moves south. And if we had this as an embankment, that flood water would flow down the embankment and flood the Rose Lane properties. So the concrete piers allow the flood water to come through in that worst case event. So that's part of that design process that we went through. And that's just another impression of what this should look like with a bit of landscape planting. So just to conclude, I think on Church Benton, the main components, we've got the works construction. This is the order components, the powers to construct the works. So the highway access from the public highway, the bridge, a new footbridge, and new farm access tracks, and some flood mitigation. Permanent land acquisition to deliver the works, temporary land acquisition for construction, extinguishment of the private level crossing rights, which is important, various works on the public highway to do bits and pieces, and also there's an overhead line across the site, so we've got powers to divert that as well. And a few sort of success points with this project. So we carried out several stages of statutory and public consultation. There was a really good level of local engagement with that, and a broad level of support for the scheme. I mean, there are obvious benefits, to particularly the people who live on Rose Lane, of having a brand new access road to where they live. So that was well received. Crucially importantly here, we had support from the Environment Agency on the flood mitigation, flood risk management strategy and design that I've talked about. So that helped to get rid of a potential objector, a potential statutory objector. So that's really important. We ended up with only one objector at the public inquiry, and probably consequently a very short period between the close of the inquiry and the Secretary of State decision in November. So I think that's everything on Church.
It's probably worth emphasising on success there. When we did the consultation with the public during COVID, so we had to think differently in how we did it. So a lot of it was virtual rooms, and we had to provide access to a lot of the residents so they could get virtual access, IT access, and hold meetings in a completely different way to get everybody on side in that particular location as well, wasn't it? Yeah. Something we had to do completely differently, which worked quite well.
Yeah, and there was a lot of effort that went into that public consultation. That's always important, and the local community responded quite well to that. So that's good. Okay, so the second Transport Works Act order is the Leeds to Micklefield Enhancements Order. On programme, the application was made in July 2023, public inquiry February, March this year, and we're hoping for a Secretary of State decision at the back end of this year, basically, and then hopefully the order will be made and brought into force very quickly after that decision. There's a short process to go through between the decision and actually it becoming a legal power that we can use. This order is very different to the Church Fenton order in that it's a multi-site, multi-element order. There are 17 separate elements in this order, and it stretches from the Kirkgate Viaduct in central Leeds all the way out to the Peckfield and Hyroids Wood level crossings in Micklefield. So 17 different elements, broad area of work, which make things a bit complicated. There's a bit of a rider on this one. So the following slides are very outline in terms of what the order includes, and I've also missed out a number of compounds because they're not very interesting, basically. But there are a number of just land-only compound elements to make sure we could get compounds to get on and do the work on the road. So I've not included those, generally speaking. So what I'm going to do, and I'll kind of rush through this a little bit. So if there's anything later on, just ask me. But going from Leeds to York, I'll just go through the main elements that we've included in the order. I think I might have skipped one. Okay, there's a couple that are missing here that I thought were in there, but that's fine. So the ones that are missing, there's there's land at Kirkgate Bridge and land at Marsh Lane Bridge. So essentially, we are taking Kirkgate Bridge in central Leeds and Marsh Lane Bridge out and putting new bridges back in. In the order, there are bits of land around the bridges to make sure we can get at those bridges and do those works. The actual bridge works are not included in the order. We're getting consent separately with Leeds City Council. Kirkgate's done. This one is at Penny Pocket Park. So that's the park in central Leeds. Those of you who know it, it's just opposite the Minster on an embankment, and we're putting a new signal gantry and some small scale electrification equipment on that embankment, and we need land on the embankment to make sure we can actually put that stuff there. So the network rail boundary is very narrow there, very tight to the railway. So that's why there's land in the order to be able to deliver those fairly small scale discrete works. So Alsthorpe Lane, Hull 421, Alsthorpe Lane Bridge. So this is the first of 4 listed bridges that we are affecting on the route, and they are all listed bridges. And I'll come on a little bit later to a bit of detail about the heritage side of things. so I'll skip over that for now, but it's a listed bridge. The bridge is too low to get overhead line equipment through, so the bridge has to come down. We've got to rebuild it. At Alsthorpe Lane, we've got a footbridge that's basically connected to the bridge, and a pipe gas main bridge next to the bridge. So all of those are coming out. The pipe's going underground, new bridge. So a range of powers we've included in the order for that. Permanent land for the highway and gas main diversion, temporary land for construction, changes to the highway, plan permission, listed building consent. This is one of the bigger elements of the scheme. Crawshaw Woods Bridge, Hull 420, another listed bridge. It's different to Alsthorpe Lane in its style, and I'll show you that later. But again, it has to come down. It's too low for electrification. We're partly demolishing and reconstructing that bridge. Again, a range of powers similar to what we are seeking for at Alsthorpe Lane. This carries a public right of way across it, so the powers include stopping that up temporarily and tweaking it slightly. Barrowby Foot and Barrowby Lane level crossings. So there are 5 level crossings on this section of the route that we are including in the order, and the powers are to close those level crossings and to provide an alternative solution to access across the railway, and it varies in different locations. Barrowby Foot and Barrowby Lane are the first 2 going from Leeds to York. And in this location, we're going to be putting a bridleway bridge in. Barrowby Lane carries a bridleway over the railway line. So we're going to be building a new bridleway bridge as an image of what it will look like. Quite a wide range of powers needed here, including closure of the public footpath crossings, compulsory acquisition of the land to actually put the bridge in, temporary acquisition of land and diversion of the public right of way and so on. So quite a broad range of powers affecting land outside network control again. Ridge Road Bridge is the 4th listed bridge. There is another one called Brady Farm Bridge. I'm just going to check that. Yeah. So Ridge Road Bridge and Brady Farm Bridge, that's Hull 414 and 415. Quite close to each other, but you may know where they are. So again, two bridges, listed bridges, very similar to Alsthorpe Lane, too low. They've got to come out and be rebuilt. Again, quite a broad range of powers we're including to do those works. Listed building consent, deemed planning permission, land acquisition, and so on. A variety of items there. Just notably, the Brady Farm Bridge, which is not shown on here, doesn't serve any purpose. So it's a bridge in the middle of the countryside. It doesn't have a public right of way. It doesn't have a road. It doesn't have any access rights in it. So we are going to be demolishing that and not putting anything back. That's been agreed with historically, and I'll come on to that in a bit. Micklefield track section cabinet. This is I suppose it's a good example of it. It's a very minor bit of work, but because we couldn't find anywhere to put the track section cabinet in Network Rail's land, to make sure we could put it where we need to put it within a very tightly defined geographical area to serve, we included land in the order to make sure we could do that. Peckfield level crossing. I've been working on this level crossing for 7 years. I just realised. Yes. So it's quite interesting, Peckfield, and we've been through various kind of iterations with this. But Peckfield level crossing is the one that's probably most controversial, because it's the one where we are closing the level crossing. We're not putting a bridge in, and the reason for that is that you can just about see here. So the level crossing is there. There is a level access route from one side of the railway to the other. So down, if you're coming from the south, public right of way, along pit lane, underneath the Great North Road bridge, and then back into the recreation ground or back up there. So we're not putting a bridge to replace that level crossing, and that's attracted the most concern, I would say. So a few words on a few topic areas. First of all, environment. Quite often people think, transport works out on a big project, environmental impact assessment, you know, lots of work, lots of problems and so on. Not the case on the Leeds to Micklefield order. So in order to determine the need for environmental impact assessment, we do something called a screening opinion with the City Council and with TIPU, that's the Transport Infrastructure Planning Unit of DFT. So we actually asked them, do we need an environmental impact assessment for this work? And they said, no, we don't. Even though we're knocking listed bridges down, we didn't need EIA. What we did do was produce an environmental report to go with the Transport Works Act order. And that just helped to give Leeds City Council, who is the relevant local authority, the assurance that they knew what we were doing, they knew what the environmental effects are, and they have some control over those where appropriate. So we did do an environmental report, but it's not as big and complex as an EIA. And we have an environmental agreement signed with Leeds City Council to manage those environmental effects. On consultation, we've touched on this a little bit. We carried out extensive public consultation in 2022. We had 248 responses from the public. We held 3 public events. The main areas, I mean, to be honest, given that we had 17 different elements in the scheme involving some fairly major works and some fairly large scale compounds which have long duration, we had quite limited levels of objection to this. And it was pretty good, and I think I'd like to think that was partly the way we carried out the consultation, and we engaged with people and provided people with information to hopefully satisfy their concerns. But in terms of areas of concern, mostly about Peckfield level crossing, as I mentioned. I think people are concerned about the fact why you're not building a bridge, like a bridge, and then also general queries about how construction effects would be managed during the works. So those are the 2 main areas. Excuse me. And as well as public consultation, we carried out technical consultation. So 2 sort of different categories of consultation. Technical consultation with effectively prescribed organisations that are prescribed in the rules about how we have to do these things. We produced a technical consultation pack to give them an outline of what we needed, and we had responses from the groups that are listed on the slide. Most notably, Leeds City Council. So all of the works, pretty sure, yeah, all of the works in this area. Okay, 99% of the works in this area are in Leeds City Council's area, and Leeds City Council has taken a great interest in this, and we've worked very collaboratively with the City Council. Notwithstanding that, they had a number of detailed concerns and quite a few areas of objection initially, and I'll come back to that in a minute. And then, so the final set of slides here is on heritage. I just thought I'd mention that because it is quite a key issue for us on this section of route, because effectively we are knocking down for substantial injury for grade 2 listed structures. So that the grade 2 listing is essentially the second highest national designation for heritage you can get. So there is quite a lot of scrutiny when you want to do that kind of work. It's quite a lot of scrutiny. All I want to do is just show you these bridges. So this is Allsthorpe Lane. That's Brady Farm. That's Ridge Road. So 3 of the bridges are of this design. So this is called a basket arch design, and I'm going to get this right. It was designed by Walker and Burgess, and they were constructed in the 1830s. So they're quite an important historic feature as a group of bridges on a active railway. It's uncommon, and they're listed partly because of that, because of their design. And you can see how similar they are. You know, the geometry is very similar. So that's 3 of them. And this slide just gives you an idea of design development. So in terms of design development, we spent a lot of time talking to Historic England, which is the statutory body responsible for heritage listed heritage designations. And we started off and we said, well, actually, we want to do that. And they said, no, we don't like that. Perhaps understandably, so this is a flat, fairly basic, standard flat deck bridge, steel bridge with stonework facing. And they said we don't like that. That's not really a good quality design. It doesn't really reflect heritage. But we don't like it. So we went away and we did some more work. We had two alternatives really in terms of alternative design. That was one. I can't describe that. I can't remember the technical terminology for that one. But anyway, that was one option we presented, and that was the other option. And they liked that. And I think hopefully you can kind of see if you look at the geometry. So this is intended to be weathering steel ribs underneath the bridge, and the idea is that it reflects the geometry of the original bridges. So you can kind of see what we're trying to do with that. I apologise, it's not a great image that, but hopefully you can see it. So they liked that, and we agreed with Historic England that was an acceptable design. It reflected the heritage of the existing structures. It kind of effectively retains that design ethic in a modern style that will last for another 100 and 200, however long the design like is. But anyway, so that was quite a success, and we got that agreement with both Historic England and Leeds City Council.
The ballast condition will be better as well than what it shows on the
yes. Don't
on that picture. I don't know who
don't look at that.
Who got carried away somewhere, but it ended up like a moonscape at one point. Yeah, the ballast will be really better.
Oh yeah, and so this is Crawshaw Woods. I just want to illustrate this because it's different. So you obviously it's different. So that's the existing structure. It's a bit of a mess because it's old and the paint's peeling off and stuff. But this is so this bit here is listed, and it's a cast iron bridge, and it's apparently, I think, possibly the only one in the world, or certainly it's a very rare example of a cast iron bridge over an operational railway. It's grade 2 listed. Historic England were keen that we tried to retain this, so we did a lot of toing and froing on design optioneering. And what we've come up with is essentially we take the cast iron structure out, we take it off site, sandblast it, paint it, whatever, make it nice, make it fit for purpose, and we pop it back and we elevate the abutments up, so that it gives us the height we need to get the wires underneath. And also we tied it. This here is a sort of a modern addition to the bridge parapet, which is pretty unpleasant. So we're going to make some improvements to that. So historically we're delighted with that. I think it's a really good example of some very kind of proactive design work, getting our heritage people involved in the design process, talking to Historic England and coming up with a feedback solution. I think this is the last slide. I'm not sure how we're doing. We're doing okay, or just about. So again, just to finish off on some notable successes. Several stages of public and statutory consultation. Again, a good level of local engagement, limited objections, which was really positive given the scale of the scheme. Leeds City Council, as I said, we had a lot of objections from them. We had about 330 detailed objections on our application documents, which we kind of whittled down to 42 main objection points and eventually down to 1. And then we went to public inquiry and they didn't defend their position. So it was a really good result with Leeds City Council. And yes, so the other objections remaining at the inquiry were really kind of limited to one landowner in the Peak and Northern Footpath Society on some detail around public footpath diversions, which I won't go into the details. But so we ended up at inquiry with fairly limited objections. We also managed quite a short period between the application in July 23 and the inquiry in Feb 24. It might seem like a longish time, but it's a fairly short period in TWAO world, given the scale of the scheme. So we're reasonably hopeful to get a decision this year.
I think just to add before we go on to the question, things from our perspective, what's really important is how, hopefully some of you will come across these or whatever, but how key it is to make this a success that designers, construction, consents, environment. Everybody has to come together in a collective way to make these work, and the amount of work and effort that goes into when we submit these is pretty phenomenal. We have to be absolutely robust and be able to stand up to scrutiny. We have had further scrutiny on these. The Ministry of Justice now seems to be getting involved and scrutinising all acts going through in the country, throughout the country, to make sure that they are legally watertight and binding. So it is, you know, starting these early and getting the right people on board, all working together, is key to get these through the system and to get these and make these a success. Because it's some task getting them through the process that we had to go through, and sitting in the inquiries as well, and the witnesses, etc., having to give statements. It's quite an interesting period of your time in your life. But you know, the time and the effort that railway people put into these does make them a success to help the project and help us deliver the project.
David, Andy, thank you so much for that. Any questions?
How much can you sort of future-proof sort of like? Well, we think in 15 years' time it could be a 4-track. Can you sort of expand developers, or does that come up in objections? Or
So we've done that already, a bit of future proofing, because we're aware of, you know, there are other schemes and being talked about, FPR schemes and forward tracking, etc. So there are, when we were aware of these, so we did future proof. So a couple of the structures, bridges, we are making sure that they are wide enough, so if we do forward track, we've got that availability to do that. So yeah, we are, where we can, we have tried to do that with. But it's trading off. You don't want to have some ugly structure which is too wide, and you have to do it. And then you get criticism for why you've gone down that road. But yeah, as much as we can, we have tried to future-proof that and included it within the orders as well. And that temporary land as well, if I think we are going to be difficult, we've included other areas that we need. Yep.
Yeah, I was just wondering from an earthworks perspective, was there a lot of consultation within Network Green in terms of installing new access points along the route?
Yeah. We work closely all the way through this with maintenance and ops in what, from a construction perspective, sort of access do we need, and access routes and wraps, etc. And then what's the legacy for maintenance as well, is how do we improve the access onto the track and to maintain it, maintainability as well, be it from track, be it from signalling. So yeah, we're trying to put in as many access points as feasible, about every mile, every 2.5 miles or something. So and they're going to be in a shape where most of them are going to be at least for 1 or 2 vehicles, lighting. Yeah, some will have toilet facilities, etc. So we're trying to leave a railway system there that's fit and viable for maintenance and for ops coming up.
Probably at the 4 corners of the bridges as well.
Some of the bridges as well. I think we've got some.
There are certainly some where we're moving and improving.
Yeah.
On the bridge.
Not going to make it all too far.
Chris.
Okay. A mechanism for getting consent for big development projects, a development consent order. Would that have been an option for this scheme? And if so, would you just weigh up the pros and cons and weigh when Transport and Works Act rather than development consent?
In short, no, because there are thresholds to qualify as a development consent order, and this project doesn't meet those thresholds. So the thresholds to do with length of new track, and there's detail around that, but basically. You can actually apply to the Secretary of State to make your scheme a DCO, but you've got to be able to justify that. So the answer is no. Pros and cons are various. The theory, I'm going to say theory, I'm going to say that. The pro of a development consent order is that the determination period, so the examination period, the period post submission to decision, is set in the legislation. Whether that actually happens in practice or not is a different discussion. But so that's the pro of a DCO. Theoretically, it's a quicker, more defined decision timeframe. Transport Works Act orders, there is no definition of the decision timeframe. You're in the hands of the inspector and the Secretary of State, broadly speaking.
Rose Cottage.
Roselane.
Roselane, yeah.
Was it a monetary value building all that work to buy a house?
Well,
It's usually think of, because it's isolated buildings, just buy the buildings on, instead of building all that network and stuff around it for that one isolated area. I don't know if it was like another reason for not doing that.
We did look at that, but it was decided it was a political angle that we didn't go for, and the cottages, and we did talk to the cottages about the footbridge as well, as in we remove and we don't put the footbridge back, but we couldn't get consensus with all the cottages. So we have to go down the route of putting a new footbridge in, as a good example. So we did explore possibly do we buy the cottages, but
It just seems a lot of work for like.
it does, but it was considered politically not great from Network Rail or the rail industry to possibly pushing people out of their homes. If it went wrong, the feedback and the fallout on us would be quite catastrophic. So we were sort of shied away from those, and the orders is a better way of undertaking this. And it wasn't just the cottages; there was the farmers we had to consider as well at the time. So different options. It's a fair question. Different options. We have looked at it, and we ummed and ahed, and what do we do? And we took advice, and sought advice, legal advice, NR, corporate, etc. And the view was we didn't particularly want to go down that road of possibly taking people out of their homes.
Louise, you've got someone from the online world. This question.
Yeah, okay, so whilst not in your scope, what is the stage of development of a new station of Thorpe Park? And is there possible vision for future construction in the TIU's proposals?
So Thorpe Park, that's going ahead. It's a third-party scheme. They are just commencing for, I believe, and they're aiming to get Thorpe Park completed. I think you're asking about when it's going to get completed by. Yeah. Yeah. There's. We are in discussion with them, and there's obviously we're making sure that there's provision for our works as they're building. They're due to complete now, mid-late 26. So we're ahead of them at the moment. But they will be building a platform which will be, if that's right, demountable, i.e. a temporary one. So it'll come out, cover and be accessible for a 2-track railway. And then once we go to the 4-track railway, which is what eventually is likely going to happen, then that can be easily removed. But the signalling be there for be in the position for the 4-track. It'll just be the station itself, the platform will be a temporary type construction to allow it to be a 2-track railway to begin with, and then remove 4 tracks again. As much as we can, we're trying to future-proof.
Selfishly, I have a quick question, which is what it's as much for I suppose both of you. What makes your life easier in developing TWO from the designers? So what can the designers do, the consultancy or whoever you've got in the design teams? What makes your life easier when developing a TWO hack, as it were, developing the information that goes into that?
well, I
mean, is it useful, for example, to have one single supplier, one single consultant through the process? Does that make things easier, or what lessons?
What I would say to that is that if I was, and typically I would do this, if I'm starting a Transport Works Act order project and we're having our first meeting with the design team and the lead designer or whatever, I would say to them, who is going to be the expert witness of the public inquiry? And I would like to work with that person for the next 2 years very closely, making sure that we get this right. And there is a properly resourced element of the design team to sort of seriously and properly and fully engage with the Transport Works Act order process.
I think it's a good point to note and raise. I don't think people really understand how much time and effort goes into these, and I think people go in a bit blinkered and then suddenly realise how much time and effort it takes, and the need for dedicated people to support and work with sense and everybody else to get these over the line. I think quite often we still go skeleton approach and we just put too much pressure on people. And probably from a design perspective, it's making sure that you've got those key people on point who are going to be all the way through this, and they're going to work closely all the way through this, rather than trying to dip in and dip out. It's quite often what you have in most projects. You kind of jump things. Yeah.
So what sort of outcomes can you have? So they can decline it, they can accept it, can they partially accept it? So if you do have something that they don't agree with, do they ever get the opportunity to say, you can have 15 of the 17, but come back to us on the other 2? Or how does that work?
Yeah, but basically, the excuse me, the Secretary of State has power to modify the order, but that is quite limited, because they can't modify it to the extent that it does something completely different to what you applied for, because then you've not been through due process. But yes, they typically, I think things get struck out basically, but there is scope to do small modifications.
That's it here. You might be able to just help us well on that question.
Yeah, so called Claire. So Natalie Jones, I'm head of legal, one of the heads of legal firm. And I think so. The answer to your question is that can they decline it? Yes, they can. I think if you were at a situation where you thought you were going to get a decline, or you would want to know that your business case was robust for the application. So I think we have sufficient scrutiny. Hope we won't put an application in not necessarily being given. But actually, then you may get one that's modified. I think it's mentioned that will probably be taking things out, so you don't get some of the powers that you're seeking, whether that's you don't get some of the land powers, you don't get some of the works powers, which then makes bits of your application you can't then deliver. But you can actually, the Secretary of State can actually make more than one order from one application. So it depends how you've sort of framed it. But the Secretary of State's got quite a bit of discretion. But as I said, you can't veer so far away from it. But it's the thing like what you've actually applied for, because then all the things where you assess the environmental impact and everything else would be accuracy, and people would have had the opportunity to object it. So yeah, in theory, yes, anything can be declined. Hopefully you get everything you've asked for, but often it will be there'll be some tweaks in there anyway.
Sorry to drop that in. But we get a better view. Everyone's good.
Towards tremendous thanks. Just a reminder, 4th of June, Leeds. Please come along if you can. It's going to be really interesting on an MMLE, something that I've been working on for years. Just as this, I was watching, Shipley Depot has tracks area on that, watching Castleford tracks area on that. It's like all the easterly stuff we'll be working on. And also 20th of June for the next talk here. So please come along. But before we all depart, can we just say a very warm thank you to constant trains, which is why I put a bookend in that, because there are some trains that people need to run in cash.
Yeah,
so
I think I'm going to disappear.
Yeah, go for it. Go for it.
Thank you.
so much. Yeah, thanks everyone. See you in Leeds.
I saw people going to the pub.
Yeah, is anyone going to the York Tap? I can't, because I need to go back and look after a baby. There's usually a Louise up here.
Yeah.
You're going to shoot, yeah.
That might do, yeah. I'm going to make a dash.
Would you be?
Yeah, go for it.
She's good for having. She's good for having. She's doing good at that. So most of it's nursery rather than enough. But
I recommended.
you have to some signing. Bridget is growing her stuff. She's learning how to do this. She wants to learn how to do jackets on. So that's her current mood is I want to put this down.
Trying to get it all in that.
This week's kind of gone a bit late.
It is. That's why I'm going to
She also does. She goes,
Well done. It's a while since I've seen something that so easterly. So
I couldn't download some of the stuff on we've done, because some of them are half the presentation. Oh, we transfer something. Well, I could not. I just blocked everything. So I'm going to try some of the pictures that we've done.
I really enjoyed seeing the plan and everything and kind of visuals.
It was quite good. It was, yeah, exactly.
That's like she's going to get she's not even she's like not that confident anymore. Imagine just not going around like this.
well, is that
We could talk just on
We're lucky the nurseries nearby as well. So they're a good sort of
what we've got to try and do there. Everybody's trying to stop it.
Yeah, they really
can because
PTRC
want to go there.
they don't know
No, that's the problem.
all the money that will jump on. but it's
But are both.
the problem.
Yeah, no, it's bad, it's bad. The main thing is sleep's in hell, so managing that is really difficult. And
Because we have to shut the deck.
Dean's been quite scrapped, so she's not really had a chance. We're getting there actually with sleep training. Yeah,
It's sort of going.
Yeah, there's got some trouble, right?
It's got to be maintained. You know, our we should do it. Keep us constant. But it doesn't. Because it's just perfect.
Well,
I don't know,
yeah,
I'm doing things in the evening.
It's been like,
Well, I wonder why they're
Never
taking
done.
careers.
Yeah.
So other things like, should we go out on to the end, like working like, yeah, so working on, oh, the Airbnb's very different. It's just like, you want to be able to go to Airbnb, you get access for it.
You in?
Wasn't going to bring up that it's probably done all the time.
So stuff like that.
But I thought that's. Yeah. So keep your powders on. Absolutely. Yeah. No, it was good. It was really.
She didn't.
It's nice to see. It's nice to see. I celebrated 9 years as a last month. We've only just wanted to apply on, you know, how many times I've been trip to, and I'll give you some comments. So I always shows for about how long he on the thing. I didn't know, but ready for the rest of it. Where it was 69.
Where's that story? No, I think. Yeah, so. Yeah, so exactly, yeah. Yeah, drop a car in Garrett was worth it. Ah, okay.
So yeah, it's quite a bit. That's how often that's been Gary's, isn't it?
That's okay. Yeah, I'm just.
Yeah, it's around that sort of area.
Very good, nice to see you.
Okay.
Take care. Yeah.
I wouldn't check it. I stuck by it.
Cheers.
Just pour it.
Sorry.
No, that's right.
Sorry to ask the question that dropped you in it there.
No, that's.
No. It was
There's a couple of times I was like, should I say something? I thought, no, I'm going to.
yeah, it was just in case we didn't get it quite the legal.
The thing that's so frustrating is the timescales.
Well,
Getting
and then
pressed
what's-
for
so the one-
speed and things.
Yeah.
And then it's like, well, we're ready to go, and then you can't wait and
But
say.
there was a speed improvement in there, but I didn't mention it. I was a bit, I thought, I was going to say to at the end, I was like, are you going to repair it? Because it's kind of finished detail.
I wasn't aware.
DCOs have got statutory timescales, TWOs don't. Same thing, completely don't. And what you alluded to is that DCOs have statutory timescales, but they kind of get extended.
Yeah.
They're not, it used to be you could get one in 18 months.
Is there
After application, that was
No.
so they will take me so much longer, but then TWA, we've got a KPI now for decisions, which is what drives the faster, instead of it being straight.
You're
So that's.
all in the design, your detailed design, you're looking to get into Sprint forward.
So I love this.
If you hadn't got, if you don't know what land you're gonna get, it's how much risk you proceed with in your design development and any procurement and materials, long lead items and all those sorts of things. Some of these bridges, you get out from long lead items.
So we're seeing it now, and
Yeah.
it's a question of resident yourself and other things.
I'm watching.
We're still waiting for the next tranche award for this, and we were just about to get it done.
So the renewal.
Yeah.
It's a lot of fun beating my brother up with the
But
Clyde.
we've heard it's going to possibly get delayed. So
They have their.
Where's that for you, where they're like,
Well, no, but
Well-
the thing I've heard the latest is September as well.
But that's,
You know,
yeah.
it's not like that.
Yeah.
correct.
That's
It's
it.
like, right,
We're hearing this thing, or
I like that. Should we let's
we're
leave
going to get an interim one, so let's sleep possibly 3 months for a reward. So
give it just before.
Yes, so they're going to, it's an election, and then they go on and go, what, here,
Here is,
I think we're doing in the north. It then makes me wonder what we're going to do with the transport. We're due for a decision from here, but
No,
now,
How about that?
you know, all I'm thinking about is,
Because the.
it's probably either.
yes,
Yeah.
we're into politics.
You know, let's launch the election
So
campaign
I.
for Washington Platform.
Absolutely, yeah. Here we go.
So you should get it. So it was 12th of March, I think you finished. And so I said to them, so 13th of June, you should be telling us that you've got the inspection. And if pins have a different view, they need to tell you sharpish. So, and so they've agreed with them that they'll let them know.
the inspector's report.
Because they don't have to, so that's the thing.
Yeah, that was it.
There's
That
lots
was
of
one that
things
we were on, it's like, you sat there expecting it on the like, well, it should be.
not
First they were expecting it here,
Still waiting.
but they've got no obligation to do it. And it kind of feels like a standing wait
But that
outside the door to know if you're gonna get called in or not.
Yeah, absolutely.
But that's the bit where speech has been good. Speed never changed our relationship.
She's
Yeah,
totally like, she's
yeah.
bilingual is the
But
next
she-
one, but she's.
I've now got a.
Oh, is your wife-
So, I think it's service association, so. yes,
They're more
so her first language is first language.
Actually, so it gets to the 13th and we go, I think, could we have the inspector's report now, which is like the case. They can tell us. And then we've already said, so that means if you're getting it the 13th of June, we already know when you're supposed to have your decisions.
It's funny, you know, it's
Nixon's just in before.
Read
the time
alongside
they
the
go into
first
the period. Plus, I know that if they know they've got this,
Affect anything like their ability to transfer.
Yeah, it's, don't they, that's the problem, yeah.
they will be nervous to grant any decisions.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So.
So yeah, I don't think that's.
That's where they'll be conscious of that. And they'll be trying to get to that point because they know they're cut off the states. So all of that, they're already allowed to.
In terms of the transfers, what's the sort of scrutiny from an individual